Hi guys, and welcome back to ECAfrica Talks. My name is Taynita, and I'm so excited to have you here with us. The series has been so interesting, and we've been able to speak to such dynamic entrepreneurs and business owners in such a variety of fields. And today's guest is somebody that we've worked with ECAfrica, but also is just an entrepreneur whose journey I'm really inspired by. So I hope that you guys will enjoy this. Please like, share, subscribe, share to a friend of a friend. We really love seeing this community grow. Please help me in welcoming Cheslin. Cheslin is an entrepreneur who's really shifting the game when it comes to online innovation, but also innovation that tangibly affects the entrepreneurs that he's working with. So he's going to tell us a little more about his story. But Cheslin, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure being here today. It's a cold day today. But it's a privilege to be asked to come and join the show and just share wisdom and insights with you today. Thank you, Tanita.
I'm so grateful for you. I think it's always really good to have people in your network that you can draw on. I mean, the transparency is that we've tried to do this before and we're now getting to do it again, which is just so lovely. But it also just reminds me why it's important, especially as entrepreneurs of color, to have networks that you can draw on and ask favors of, or actually want to share people's stories as well, because I feel like sometimes any bump in the road feels like the end of the world. But when you're like, no, I have a solid network behind me, we can do that.
I guess that is a narrative that we don't have as young African entrepreneurs. I think that, our other demographics have got it right. Your Muslim groups, your Jewish groups, certain society groups. But as a black individual, we have to really strive to create those networks and those safety nets for us, because at the end of the day, if we're not putting ladders down or putting them below us, how are we going to help our next generation come up?
Yeah.
So, I'm very about empowering a youth. I love to speak on these kind of panels because it also reminds me that the knowledge that I impart with others, I hope will impart in a legacy for my kids and other young ones coming up in the game, because this is not easy. Entrepreneurship is challenging.
No, 100%. And we've just sort of jumped in. But before we do that, let's just do a little bit of a backpedal. I think it's always really interesting. I was actually listening to a podcast earlier today, and they were saying the ability for one's self to advocate for yourself, but also to share your story the way that you would like it to be shared, is such a special thing to do. And so something we like to do on ECAfrica is get our entrepreneurs to tell us who you are and what you do from your perspective. So tell the people what you do.
Awesome. So as you guys know, my name is Cheslin. I'm now going to be 31 this year. So my journey was quite crazy. I had started as a milk boy at the age of 14. I used to pack milk. I had a mum, and obviously she was single. I had no father around, and that kind of geared me to say, I got to do this thing for myself, cook my own tools. And with that, obviously, I saw that my mom couldn't give me the necessary things that I wanted, and especially going to a middle C school. So I started working at a very young age, understanding the value of money. That led me to obviously working, getting jobs, casual jobs, and got into my particular career. And I found myself in procurement. And that led me to understanding this gap that I saw in the market, which led me to establishing Noble 5 years ago. And that gap was people used to come onto the Western Cape Provincial database. Mm-hmm. They used to work from Kailicha, Guguletu, like far places, man. Travel taxi, spend about 250 Rand and come to a database center with a set of documents, which was not correct. For me to sit there with a tick box with no understanding and say, no, sorry, you can't. And we'd see about 50 people and onboard only 10.
Sure.
And those people had to go back home. And with that understanding of knowledge, my boss simply told me, Cheslin, this is not your job to educate. Your job is just to tick this checkbox. And if they make it, they make it. If they don't, they don't. Send them back home. That grated me. And I took it on my own will to create this Ennoble platform. So what Ennoble is, it's a pre-vetting system. So if you want to get into a supply chain, you want to get access to funding, you want to get access to or apply for a tender, you need to make sure that your I's are dot and your I's are dot and your T's are crossed from a compliance regulatory perspective, especially in your industry. Because if you're in certain sectors and industries, you need to have the right regulatory certifications. And that's what we do on a holistic point. So we see what is your aim? You want to get into supply chain, you want to get into funding. Do you have the right ingredients to apply and not get dismissed? Like I used to dismiss people, because you go to any SME goes to the bank, they know what's coming. Yeah. There's no faith as going to the bank. So where do you turn to? Where do you go to? So we built markets around us, funding markets, 25 partners in funding. With supply chain, we have over about 5 to 10 supply chain companies that we work with, because there's a problem. Yeah. The problem is buyers and procurement teams do not trust small businesses.
Which is so unfortunate.
They have a reputation of not having money. They have a reputation of not being able to complete the jobs. They have a reputation of not having the right documentation. If you look at that crisis that happened in George, that building that collapsed, they went to investigate, and that particular supplier that erected that building was not registered on the CIDB grading board.
That actually just frustrates me, because I think that the fault lies on both sides, right? And I mean, even just with conversations with you, SMMEs, yes, we can always do so much better and we can always try. But there's also a flippancy by the corporates that if a friend knows a friend, or if I know this person and I vouch for Cheslin, but his business isn't registered, and then all SMMEs get labeled with this, don't work with them, they're difficult to work with. And none of that accountability is taken by the corporate for procuring somebody that wasn't up to standard. And unfortunately, in South Africa, that not up to standard tends to look very white, because as Black businesses, we get those X's quickly. They come fast.
Yes,
and so I'm really intrigued by your platform, because it sort of democratizes this information, right? So it allows people to go on and see what they don't know, because a lot of the time you think you've got all your ducks in a row, you think that you're compliant, and sometimes it's a small thing, like making sure that you've paid your 200 Rand to the CIPC, 100. Making sure that you your tax clearance is done. And it's not that you're not a compliant person or that you're an entrepreneur who doesn't have money. It's just that you didn't even know that you had to do that. But before we dig deeper into the compliance issue, I'm really intrigued. You mentioned the milk, and then you worked in corporate, and now you're here. What made you do the jump from corporate to entrepreneurship? Because I've had a few guests who have made that jump, and a few people who have sort of flipped between the two. So have started a business, gone back to their corporate jobs. And I'm always so intrigued, because entrepreneurship, I'm so inspired by entrepreneurs, because it's not that they have businesses that make them entrepreneurs. It's their very essence. And so I feel like you have that. So what made you do the jump?
I never chose this path. I think my maker guided me here. So we went through retrenchment at our company. So they popped 75 of our staff. Sure. It was a German-based business, and they couldn't see the need of the South African market at the time. There was a lot of turmoil, and we got 1 month. They told us it's a retrenchment, and at the time I met up with a colleague of mine that was working with me in retail prior to me actually getting the corporate gig, and I told him about this idea of a coffee, and it was a software development company called Skyhawk Innovation. And he's actually a friend of mine more than a partner. And he said, dude, I think this is a massive problem that we want to solve. And he said, at the time I didn't get my severance package, and I was still going through the retrenchment process. And he said, why don't you come work with me and build this thing? And I said, yeah, bro, this is my salary. And he laughed at me. I was earning quite decent in what I was doing. And he said, come back to you in 2 weeks. I think we're going to drop this contract. And came back 2 weeks. He said, I didn't get the contract. And he said, unfortunately, we can't proceed with the idea because I won't be able to pay you. Yeah. And that's when my tummy turned. And I made that decision in 2019. It was July. I said, I'm all in. I said, I'll take the last bit of money. I got married to my wife. Very small wedding, 80,000 Rand in the whole. And the rest, I pulled it off. And within 6 months, I got in, at that time it was Cheslin, but in Noble we rebranded. I survived and got my first couple of clients. Actually, so crazy. A client that has been with me for 5 years just repaid my annual subscription, Gerald Niker. And I literally called him the other day and I said, sir, thank you so much for your commitment in this journey with me. And I posted him a bottle of Johnny Walker just to say thank you, because I think sometimes as a small business, people don't understand the importance of the commitment in subscription. And he stayed, from that time I signed him up. He has not let me down. He's been with me for 5 years in my business. What an incredible guy. And that reminds me why I'm doing what I'm doing, because I'm doing it for solving the problem, but I'm also doing it for the people. Yeah. And I get phone calls all the time, and big uncles like in the game, construction, cereal industry. See, Cheslin, where were you when I started my business? You need to speak to my son. Yeah. And I realized that we've battered through COVID. We actually grew in COVID. We went from 205 subscriptions to 526 subscriptions, or user base. And we saw that the word compliance, when the president spoke, and he said COVID relief fund, said if your business is compliant, you can apply to CIFA. Everybody applied. And 1,495 SMMEs got access to money. Out of that, 12 of those were my customers. I was one man at the time. And my light bulb moment switched on, and my light went, said, if I can do this by myself with the IP knowledge that I have around compliance, imagine having a solution and a team. And that's what got me committed to the game. And now we a team of six youth employed individuals. All of my individuals come from the youth program. So they've all been stipends. I've 2 supervisors that's moved up, trained, educated, and I feel very proud of what I've achieved. And that all started in Cape Town, and we relocated to Johannesburg. And I've been here for a year and 8 months, and wow, what a different landscape here. I call myself the bulldog because I don't wait for business. I looked at the data on the system. It said 75% of the users were in Johannesburg. I was calling those customers. They wanted to see me. Didn't have the money at the time to catch planes all the time to have these meetings. And I packed my family's bags and I said, guys, let's go. Yeah. Let's move. We have money to be made. There's growth here. I have a good feeling about it, and packed my bags, and here I am. 1 year and 8 months later, going to be almost 2 years. And I'm very proud for that decision because it has grown my business 3x. I've 3x my company just being in Johannesburg. The landscape here is completely different to Cape Town.
Which it's very inspiring to hear that, but also it's such a shift in the current narrative, right? So the big word is Stellenbosch or Cape Town, especially you're in tech, I'm in tech, like that seems like it's the mecca, right, in South Africa. And from speaking to you, from speaking to the Darkies and Tech Network, Joburg is such an untapped market because the businesses sit here. So as much as the innovation might be coming out of Stellenbosch or from Cape Town, the people who have the money, they're sitting here, and the people who are making those decisions are sitting here. And the reality of Joburg is that it is a bit more harsh. It is a bit more fast-paced. It is a bit more, if you fall, get up and try again, because you really don't have time to be on the floor. Like somebody else is coming. And so I think that's also just such a shift in the narrative to say that you don't have to exist in these silos. You can exist in both places, or you can, if Joburg is where you're getting your business from, move. And I mean, obviously that comes with an extensive amount of privilege and like all of the stuff, but the ability to chase your business and to champion your company that's why I'm saying entrepreneurs have an essence. It's not just that you own a business, or it's not just that you are making ends meet. This is the thing, the solution. You live, breathe it. And I think that is just such an inspiring story, because I think so many entrepreneurs think that it's this really linear path, and I'm going to leave my corporate job, I'm going to start a business, I'm going to make the big bucks, and I'm going to get out. And the reality is that's unfortunately not the way that it goes. And I think that it doesn't mean that you're doing anything wrong. It just means that you're being an entrepreneur, and it's okay.
And it's not for everybody, Most people in today's life like safety nets. Mm-hmm. And having a job and getting paid on 24th of every month at the end of the month, having a provident fund and a retirement community, those things bother us entrepreneurs. but it's the destination, it's the goal. You know, it's like, if you think of it, if you walk in the journey with me, it's like I'm walking in a forest and I have a machete and I'm knocking down all these twigs and leaves. You can't see the end of the forest. You're just going, and you're creating a path, and then all of a sudden you got people that start believing in this journey that you're walking on, and now they're following you. Now you as a leader, you're responsible for the people that's on your journey, and you simply can't make mistakes, because if you turn left, there's a cliff, and if you turn right, there's water. So you got to navigate correctly, precisely, and you got to make sure that your machete is sharp enough, because there's going to be some logs along your way. And you got to know how to navigate that emotion, because I think a lot of people in business, we don't talk about the emotional struggle we go through. Getting sick, that's a privilege when you work for a corporate. You can just get a doctor's note and move on.
Take a day off and get paid for it.
Oh, lovely. You know, we in winter go down on the flu, 2 days out of work. That's a loss of X amount of revenue in your business. You're not there. It's challenging. Teams need you all the time. Yeah, you're sick. I experienced that this week. That's why I'm bringing the conversation. And it's hectic to deal with that emotion and go through this daily operation, managing all these components. It takes a particular person.
Yeah.
It's not for everybody.
That's why we say at ECAfrica, the whole world is calling for more entrepreneurs. In South Africa, they're calling for more entrepreneurs. And I believe we need more entrepreneurs.
100%.
But you need to rear resilient entrepreneurs, people who are growing their businesses. I'm sure when you started, it didn't look the way that it did now.
No.
And now you have 6 people, and so you're creating employment. But if you're just creating entrepreneurs that are survivalistic and are only employing themselves and are just trying to make ends meet, which is fine. I mean, there is a space for it. But you need to rear really gutsy entrepreneurs who will take the risks, who will try something, and if they fail, they try again and they pivot, because the economy doesn't need more strain. It needs these, like, I say unicorns not because of the startup unicorn, but they need these unicorn zebras, whatever you want to call them, that come through and say, you know what, I've got it. Like, I've got the guts, and it doesn't mean that you can't stumble, you can't fall, you can't have a mental health crisis. Like, that, it's not saying that this person is hard. It just means that this is their calling. This is what they're going to. So on hearing that, I mean, you're going to be 31. So you're still a really young entrepreneur. How are you navigating this space? Because especially when it comes to procurement, you're going up against these legacy brands, legacy businesses. You're of color. How do you navigate that as an entrepreneur?
So I kind of don't think about it.
Okay.
Because if you're wanting to compete up against something, you have to consistently be obsessed with that thing. And I'm obsessed with myself. Mm-hmm. So in the terms that I believe people are people, and if I can paint you a picture that can solve a problem to you, and I'm convincing enough, you're surely going to be intrigued. It's like a guy hitting on you.
Yeah.
A guy that's too much, or a guy that compares himself to that guy, he doesn't get far, because he's like, you're already thinking about that person. But if I just be myself and I tell you how incredible I am, and my track record speaks for itself. I made Forbes 30 under 30, EFP Innovation Tech Award, Best Startup 2023. Now I made top 15 Geek awards, my proof is in my pudding, and I have the credibility and the accolades to prove it. And it's about giving me a chance, and I never disappoint. Yeah. That's the thing. It's like I'm the workhorse. So I go up against the giant and I say, they've been doing it for a long time. I'm here to try and challenge the market. There's generation, obviously, you must understand. In the corporate world, there's the guy that's on top. He's aged 50-something.
Yeah.
If I stay the same long enough, there's a guy that's from my school that's going to get that position, or in my circle of interest, and he's going to be like, I remember when I was still studying, Cheslin was at this game. Yeah. When I come to that stakeholder meeting, he's looking at me 15 years later, and he's built his corporate career. He's standing as the CFO, CEO, and he's like, Cheslin's been in this game. Yes. And that kind of, when we talk about the networking and the positioning, when you know the right people, they can vouch for you. Yes. Because that's how you get the deal. It's not, does he tick all the financial boxes? People don't care about money. Yeah. To be honest with you, in this, there's money in this space. And it's all about, can he do the job? Is he going to deliver? And can he get it done? Right. as he said it is. And I feel that every single time I prove myself that I can get it, I do it.
So something that you touched on is something that I'm only seeing sort of now, right? So my brother and I went to Model C schools. I went to Wits. Really, really lucky. I mean, grew up in the northern suburbs. But there's always still that little gap, right? Because the networks that I'm trying to enter have been in existence for generations and generations. But there is this emerging class of us, yourself, myself, who our peers are now climbing those ladders, and only now are we seeing the small little tidbits of that, and it really is so exciting because it shows a shift. But it's also so frustrating when people were like, but you guys did all the right things and you went to all the right schools, why haven't you climbed fast? And it's kind of like, well, I needed my people to look like me and I needed that to happen, but also you need to know Cheslin in Noble and be like, okay, I remember Tainita. I know her. I vouch for her. We studied together. We did this. But you need to get to a certain point before you can vouch for me. And so I think that's such, it's not, I don't think it's spoken enough, especially in Black businesses, where you say like, listen, you're not sowing for nothing. Like the fruits will come. So keep sowing. And keep sending your kids to the right schools and keep going to the right networking events, go to the right churches, go play golf, go do all the things, because it might seem frivolous now, but you actually don't know who you're in the room with.
It stacks up. I can tell you that for my personal self, it stacks up. People, often tell me, Jason, you always posting about yourself on LinkedIn. You're always on Instagram. You're always showcasing this journey. And I said, yes, because one day when you're in a room, and somebody says the word compliance, and somebody says, I'm struggling with this. You've seen it. It's in your head that Cheslin's your guy.
Yeah.
It's in your head. Every single friend, I don't talk to him for years. What's Cheslin up to? No, he's in Joburg. He's thrashing. He's killing it. He's doing this compliance thing. Some of them don't know what I do. And I literally, every time I sit around a fire with my friends, I ask them the question, guys, please tell me in the room, what do I do?
Sure.
And it's so crazy that entrepreneurs often steer away from asking their friends, their family. If you ask my daughter, which is 7 years old and 4 years old, what does daddy do? Daddy helps small businesses grow. One line, like period. They don't need to know the ins and outs, but when they go to school and they say, so what does he do? No, he helps small businesses grow, and I'm good with that. Yeah. Do you understand? But I feel entrepreneurs don't share enough. They think that this IP or the world that they live in, it's all supposed to be private. People are going to steal ideas. No. There's no one like you. There's not another Tanita. Your passion, your grit, your grind in ECAfrica and JT Comms, no one can replicate that. They can try and do it. They might do it, but not as determined and as enduring as you. Yeah. And if you are an entrepreneur, and I'll tell this to everybody that's watching this, if you're an entrepreneur that is not thinking of 5 years and playing the long-term game, if you want to make a quick buck here and there, entrepreneurship is not for you, hustling is for you. Yeah. But if you're playing the long-term game and you're looking to play a 5 to 10 year game, that's where the growth sits.
I really respect that, because I also think that it gives space to grow, right? So you can say, hey, I mean, the ECAfrica journey sort of goes this way. So it started off as just a network, and then upon speaking to more people in tech, we were like, oh, wait, we could make this a platform. This could be a thing that we do. And so I want to speak to you about the tech and being in technopreneurship and all of that, because I'm a non-technical founder. And so I find it to be a little bit daunting and a little bit scary. So talk me through, I mean, your platform is dynamic because it does so much, but also I'm assuming that it took quite a while to get to where you guys are, and that there'll always be iterations and improvements and all the other stuff. But talk me through that, because I don't think people speak about like the finance that goes into that, getting in a technical team. How did you navigate?
So when we founded the business, I had two partners. They were my tech partners, and we struck a deal. Mm-hmm. So it was an equity share split. They were going to build the platform with money. The money that I had was for survival for myself. So I had to put skin in the game. I wasn't going to earn a salary for 6 months. I had to figure that out. Mm-hmm. And then from there, we obviously grew the platform. We started seeing the user base grow. We focused solely on SMMEs at the time. I wanted to save the world because I saw the problem being SMMEs. It was a very horrible experience because it's a market that doesn't have money. They don't understand this actual problem because some of them have not experienced compliance as a problem. And so we had to pivot. We started procuring tender notifications, subscriptions. We then moved into transactional compliance. We then pivoted and said no, that we spent 2 years on that idling. And we then said, you know what, the corporates actually need a platform that they have transparency. And I did a validation with Transnet. And I started asking some ex-colleagues that worked at Transnet, how are you making sure that the people that were on the system, we had consultants that were screening the required documents manually. And we'd come back every year. We knew the content because really everybody's trying to get on Transnet. And I said, haha. And we started then now of this year building a buyer's portal. And this buyer's portal is fantastic because what it does, it increases the visibility of your procurement supply database. And what we're then building now with some cash that we're receiving is a dashboard. So you can actually see how much supplies are in your system, how much are compliant, and how much issues does those suppliers have on real-time basis. And you can click a button to ship it off to a support system to say, can you please make sure that this youth companies or this B level 1 companies get sorted out? And that's where we come in. We solve that kind of 3-step process. And that's the evolution of what we're developing and we're pitching at the moment. But it's going to ever change. Compliance is a complex environment. We're trying to figure out small things in increments, and we're consistently speaking to our customers, validating, speaking to our corporate customers, finding out, is this the actual problem, or is this nice to have? And that consistent validation, feedback, development go back into, that it's a complete, and I don't think it's ever going to end. Where we're looking to go to with this is the African free trade. We want to give every South African a free opportunity to trade across Africa. And that's why the partnership with ECAfrica is so on top of mind, because we want to be able to get South Africans, African people trading with one another, because at the moment it seems to be impossible. Yeah. And we want to create the governance standard for giving you the stamp of compliance. So if you think about it, Instagram, LinkedIn, all of that blue tick verification. So we're going with that, right? So we're developing, it's kind of our UPS, where we're kind of giving everybody this digital certificate with a blue tick. So when you trade across procurement solutions, if they are affiliated to us, they're like, hey, do you have your digital blue tick certificate? Yes, I got mine. Noble, very proud. And you then get an opportunity to trade because they already know that this company has done a lot of pre-vetting and screening on the suppliers, that it gives you kind of a comfort. Yeah. To know that we can actually operate with you and we can trust you.
And I think you guys are using stuff that people feel comfortable with. So in South Africa, I think people think, as a tech space, we're still growing, which is 100% true. But users actually interact with tech every day, right? There's more mobile phones in South Africa than there are people. And so I like that you're putting your tech out there in a way that they're already used to. They're already used to clicking on something, validating it, looking for the tick, looking for this. And so it doesn't feel too new, which is something I'm learning about the tech space, is that every new innovation isn't actually too new. It's just a little bit different from something that you're already used to. I mean, TikTok is just a little bit different from Instagram. Yeah. Instagram's just a little bit different from Facebook. And so I think that that's a good way to also enter the South African market. I mean, we had Marcus on our show and he was telling us that only 2 million people use Netflix across the continent, Netflix and Showmax, that's insane. We're 54 million people in South Africa, 54 million people. And so it reminds me that as a continent, as a country, the way that we interact with tech is a little bit different, because I can't tell you how many TikTok users there are in South Africa, or how many people use Twitter, or I don't know, controversial X, if that's what you want to call it. But I think that it's so important to build for the market that you're in and for your future markets. I know you were saying if you're not thinking about 5 years, maybe then you're not building a legacy brand or something that's going to last. So I guess one of my last few questions to you is, Cheslin right now and Noble right now, you guys are at such like a crucial crux point. It feels like you guys are about to, at least from the outside, it looks like you guys are about to like break through and make this really big shift. What is your hope for your business? What are you guys looking to?
I think my hope is that I really want to get into if they think about SAP, if they think about Oracle, if they think about Cooper, my name needs to be affiliated to that from association. If you think about a computer, you think about Microsoft. I want small business to know when I register my company, I need to go to Ennoble. Sure. That needs to be kind of the thinking process. You know when you buy a laptop, no matter what laptop you buy. It's like the person that sells it, do you need a Microsoft 365? Right? So when you register a business, the guy, whoever registers a company in South Africa, must say, I suggest you go on to the Ennoble solution because it's going to help you monitor and maintain your performance of compliance. So you can access opportunities and exposure. And that's what I'm trying to create. Yeah.
Something that I think is always just really interesting is hearing from our entrepreneurs who you are watching or listening to, or somebody that inspires you in their story. So, are there any entrepreneurs that are on your radar right now?
Yeah, there's this guy I was in a program with, and he really resonates with me. His name's Raiz. He runs a company called ECA Technologies, ENC Technologies. And they do digital screens, outdoor media and stuff. And besides the business that he has, just his understanding of how people operate from an intellectual, from an emotional business capacity. He's not only like a kind of mentor to me, but he's a friend. And he has shown me so much. Like he's taught me a lot of things that like I said, never had a dad. There's nobody in my lineage that is an entrepreneur. And he literally tells me all the time, Cheslin, it's like you have the keys, but you just haven't found the right lock to it. Sure. And I truly feel like I think this is our year for massive expansion. We're going after Wales this year. And I'm hoping that we fly.
Stunning. So what is a piece of advice that you give to young entrepreneurs, or a piece of advice that has been given to you?
I think your life and business is a game. There's different court sizes in cricket, in all sorts of sports, soccer. There's a set of rules. You must be in the guys that play the sport the best is the ones that can not break the rules but understand how to bend them. You got to have resilience, determination, grit, grind, because without that, you won't be able to endure. This is a painful journey. It's not easy. Yeah. It's hard. You have money today, money's gone tomorrow. But if you truly believe in what you want to achieve, how you get there, it doesn't matter. It's the why you want to get there that's most important. And I believe that entrepreneurs today need to really look at problems in the market and try and find ways and talk about things. When you instead of drinking and sitting with friends and playing PlayStation, being on TikTok, talk about things of how can we solve problems. And how the way you think, it's like how your brain starts working. And I can tell you in my journey as an entrepreneur, because I went into this path, my thinking ability, it's crazy. I've gained so much knowledge, and I've never been one to study. I was like you saying, if you look at me in high school and you look at the degree and accolades that you've achieved, I was a guy. I was this colored boy in high school, didn't have great grades. Now I pick up magazines, I read books, I'm intrigued because I want to research, I want to understand, I want to know how development works, how procurement works. Ask me 7 years ago, I laughed, and I've acquired knowledge. And if you're not eager to learn, be hungry for wanting to understand things, you will fail. Sure. And all I can tell you is that most likely if you start a business, you will fail, but fail forward.
I love that. Cheslin, thank you so much for taking the time to come speak to us. We are so inspired by your journey. Also, I can't wait to see what you guys are going to do and have you on again and again and again. Because I think it's so important to champion stories on the ground by entrepreneurs, for entrepreneurs, because it's important to see people that look like us. And I don't mean just like shade wise, but also people who are really walking their walk and are not failing, or are also not these Mark Zuckerbergs who everything seems like it just came really easy for them, but are actually tangibly making change. And you can really see that in your journey and the company that you guys have built. So yeah, I'm really appreciative that you came on.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
So you guys can follow us on ECAfrica on everything. Please like, share, subscribe, do all the stuff. Cheslin, where can they find you?
So you can get me on LinkedIn, Cheslin, also ennobled.co.za, also Instagram, Facebook, ennobled.co.za. So yeah, man, look out for our news feeds, subscribe. We really take time to help as much as everybody, at least get the understanding of compliance. But once again, I just want to say thank you guys, ECAfrica, for allowing me to be here. And I appreciate the time that you guys take to share the stories of entrepreneurs, because I think there's less stories out there, and people need to know that people in business can be relatable to them. Color of their skin, journey, schools. Not everybody comes from these Stellenbosches and top-end environments. So we're hustling out here, we're making it, and just want to again shout out, thank you.
Perfect. Bye, guys. I'll see you guys next time.